From CBS News Bay Area, this is the...
Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Ann Makovic, and we've been talking a lot about budget cuts on the federal and local levels. Today, people in Oakland are speaking out about how cuts there will drastically impact their quality of life. Several community organizations and their supporters came out in force today in Oakland. The city is cutting $2.6 million in funding for 13 organizations. They include Oakland Parks and Rec Foundations, the Downtown Oakland Association, Roots Health, and Centro Legal de la Raza, which supports tenants at risk of eviction. Their deputy director spoke at that protest.
I'm standing here today alongside our fellow community-based organizations because we are outraged. The city of Oakland has suddenly and recklessly cut critical funding to the very organizations and community that provide essential services to our most vulnerable residents, without warning, without a plan, and without regard for the devastating consequences.
Meals on Wheels also impacted by the cuts. This week we spoke with the client who says that he relies on their visits for social interaction just as much as for food.
So he stands down there, talks to the screen, gives me the food, and I get a chance to see the dog and talk to him.
For sure.
That's the only contact I have with people, you know?
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Well, some city council members say that they had no notice about the decision and that the city administrator should not have cut grants already in progress. The executive director of Meals on Wheels says he is going to fight to keep the program afloat through grants, volunteers, and donations. Possible school budget cuts in Contra Costa County. 1,000 teachers are planning a protest against a plan in the San Ramon Valley. That rally is set for today at Dougherty Valley High School. The teachers say they want to keep mental health services that could be axed as the school district faces more than $26 million in budget cuts. The people of Alameda County are going to have a new district attorney today. Judge Ursula Jones-Dixon will be sworn in about 3 hours. She's been on the bench in Alameda County for more than a decade. This comes after a recall election ousting former DA Pamela Price, whose policies were criticized for being soft on crime. Jones says she is going to focus on rebuilding trust in the role. Taking a look at our first alert weather now with a live look outside. Calm conditions today, so not a bad day to get out there and enjoy it. Meteorologist Jessica Birch says things are about to change.
It's another beautiful day for us today here in the Bay Area as we're gearing up for daytime highs to sit in the low 60s near San Francisco and Oakland, upper 60s all the way down into the Santa Clara Valley. A beautiful day to get out there and get some fresh air. But as we head into the forecast tomorrow, we are gearing up for a cold front to sweep in from offshore, and that's going to bring in a series of showers for us. And it's also going to bring in more dense clouds, and temperatures crank down by about 3 to 5 degrees widespread throughout the Bay Area. As we time this system out, you're going to notice those characteristics as early as tonight as these clouds become more dense around 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Just ahead of that system, we'll see a quick splash of showers that sweeps throughout the Bay Area tomorrow morning around 9, 10 a.m., mostly up in the North Bay. That's where it's fixated. As that moves off to the east, we clear up on the back end, but we are left with chillier temperatures too, with rainfall totals amounting close to around 1/100 of an inch of rain anywhere from the East Bay all the way up into the North Bay and down into the Santa Clara Valley. We'll keep you updated on that forecast here in the Weather Center. For now, back to you.
Southwest Airlines cutting more than 1,700 employees in corporate and leadership roles. Southwest says the restructuring will create a leaner and more agile organization. Southwest expects to complete layoffs by the end of the year. Not clear yet if those cuts are going to impact our local airports. Delegations from the U.S. and Russia met in Saudi Arabia today to talk about ending the war in Ukraine. The talks lasted for more than 4 hours. In the end, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. and Russia had agreed to appoint high-level teams to create a path to end the war in Ukraine. The Trump administration also said the U.S. and Russia agreed to restore embassy staffing in Moscow and in D.C.
We're not going to pre-negotiate an end to this conflict. These are the kinds of things that have to happen through hard and difficult diplomacy in closed rooms over a period of time.
And there was a snub. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he was not invited to the meeting and that his country needs to be a part of the conversation about its future. He was set to visit Saudi Arabia later this week, but says he's going to postpone this trip after being excluded from the talks. Still ahead here at noon and streaming on CBS News Bay Area, Los Angeles facing up to $275 billion in damage from last week's wildfires. Now a dilemma for some homeowners: rebuild or retreat. And Kentucky bracing for winter storms after deadly flooding. We're going to have the latest on the rescue efforts. Once again, we are feeling lucky weather-wise compared to other parts of the country. Several areas facing severe weather this week. The governor of Kentucky has announced that 14 people have now been killed in floods. First responders are out rescuing people across the state, with almost 300 people rescued in Martin County alone yesterday. That comes as Kentucky braces for another winter storm. The governor is urging anybody without power to stay with a friend or at a shelter. In Massachusetts, a combo of snow, ice, and wind left more than 2,000 people without power. And in North Andover, an ice-covered tree fell onto a home and a car. That storm brought down another tree in Sterling. Crews working to clear the ice from high-traffic areas to prevent accidents. Well, by some estimates, Los Angeles is facing up to $275 billion in damage from last month's wildfires. And that is creating a huge dilemma for a lot of homeowners.
Here in Los Angeles, in the aftermath of disaster, the question is whether to rebuild or retreat. I'm Mark Strassman, and that's our Eye on America on tonight's CBS Evening News.
And Mark Strassman joining us live now. Thanks for being with us. Can you talk a little bit about some of the damage that you witnessed on the ground there in LA?
And great to talk to you. Sure. I mean, walking around these neighborhoods in Los Angeles, I mean, if you've ever seen the aftermath of an individual house fire anywhere, where your gut tells you, you know what, this family has just lost everything. You know how wrenching that moment must be for that family. So now imagine house by house, block by block, entire neighborhoods just sort of completely burned off the map. And you get a sense of Los Angeles and the challenge that Los Angeles now has to rebuild. And that's true whether you're talking about a working class neighborhood like Altadena or a fancy neighborhood like Malibu. They face the same uphill struggle. And it's clearly going to be a significant rebuild, one of the epic rebuilds in urban rebuilds in modern American history.
Yeah.
But that is essentially the moment that Los Angeles is facing.
It really does seem like an insurmountable task. And of course, we've seen this on a bit of a smaller scale here in Northern California. And a lot of people, when you go to these fire zones, say, we have to rebuild. We want to rebuild. That's a lot of people's initial reactions. But from what you're hearing about people a few weeks after, are they still planning on rebuilding or retreating?
Yeah, and I think that's the goal in the minds of many people, in the hearts of many people, is that they want to rebuild. They love their house. If they could snap their fingers and magically make it reappear, they would. If they could make their neighborhood reappear, they would. I'm not sure that's realistic in many cases. They have such an uphill climb. They have insurance questions to deal with. And so for a lot of families, there's going to be a gut check, a reality check of, can we afford to do this, even if we want to do this? And that's I think, a challenge that's going to be facing many families in the weeks ahead.
And I know you spoke with a fire historian down there in LA. He had some cautionary tales about rebuilding.
Yeah, I mean, you're in Los Angeles, you're talking about a 40-year drought. You're talking about very dry vegetation, and then those Santa Ana winds came along. His essential point is, are we really going to rebuild and set ourselves up for another big fire disaster like the one we just had back in January? Would it be smarter for government to come in and buy out some of these people and move them to less fire-prone areas? It would take money, it would take political will, but there is some precedent for that, and we talk about that in our piece on CBS Evening News tonight. Should these folks essentially allow themselves to rebuild in areas that they know are problematic for fire?
Yeah. It is a real tough question. All right, thank you, Mark. And you can catch Mark Strassman's piece on tonight's Eye on America. That's coming up on the CBS Evening News, starting at 4 o'clock. Back to our first alert weather forecast, taking a live look over the bay right now. Really is a nice day, but it sounds like those clouds are about to start building back in. Let's check back in with meteorologist Jessica Birch.
It is a beautiful day for us today here in the Bay Area as we're gearing up for daytime highs to top off in the low 60s near San Francisco, across the Bay Bridge, which you see behind me in that live cam over in Oakland. And we're seeing a similar forecast all throughout the North Bay. We make our way down into the Santa Clara Valley. Upper 60s are in store for us today in the Santa Clara region, anywhere from San Jose over into Los Gatos. But as we head into the next couple of days, a cold front approaches us as early as tomorrow morning, and that's going to drop all these temperatures down by about 3 to 5 degrees. So let's dive into that forecast. Starting off with today, the winds are relatively light. Yesterday was a little bit breezier along the coast with gusts up to around 20 miles per hour, while today closer to around 15 miles per hour at max. The rest of us are going to see light conditions into the afternoon and evening hours tonight. The clouds start to accumulate into the overnight hours tonight, and then we get a quick splash of showers for tomorrow. And we're going to time that out right now so you can kind of see how fast the system moves through. Into the afternoon hours we go. We're just seeing mostly cloudy skies in the forecast. That becomes a lot more dense into the overnight hours just ahead of this cold front that pushes through tomorrow morning around 9, 10, 11 a.m. And by the time we even blink, that system moves off to the east and we clear up into the afternoon hours with just a little bit cooler weather in the forecast. In total tomorrow, we'll see close to around 1/100 of an inch of rain up into the North Bay, potentially along the coast too, near Pacifica up into San Francisco. But for the rest of us down into the Santa Clara Valley, it stays pretty much dry. Let's take a quick look at the next 7 days. We're gearing up for drier weather after Wednesday and sunnier skies too. Not only are we dealing with that, but we're also getting a nice warm up as well as we head into this weekend's forecast with 70s right around the corner as we head into Saturday and Sunday for the Santa Clara Valley, the East Bay, and potentially up into the North Bay. We'll at least hit the upper 60s. Now, speaking of upper 60s, that's the case for our friends along the bay. As early as Friday, this is going to be an amazing weekend ahead of us with beautiful dry weather, sunnier skies around the corner too. Definitely feels a little bit more spring-like here in the Bay.
Up next here on CBS News Bay Area, scammers are impersonating toll collectors. What experts say you should do if you get one of these scam texts. I've gotten one. Talk about it when we return. A warning from federal and state officials about a new text message scam. It's demanding money for unpaid tolls. You might have gotten it. The FTC says that scammers have been impersonating toll collecting agencies nationwide. The phone numbers are usually international, though. If you click on the link on the text message, don't do it. Could allow scammers to steal your personal information or money. So the Department of Transportation is telling people just to delete the messages without replying. Coca-Cola jumping into prebiotics with a new drink that's being touted as good for your health. It's called Simply Pop, expected to roll out later this month. The drink is going to come in 5 flavors and will have vitamins to support gut health. Simply Pop is going to be a rival to the popular Poppy and Olipop brands. Just ahead here at noon on CBS News Bay Area, a growing number of Black Americans are getting involved in Napa's wine industry. I'll introduce you to one of its rising stars when we come back. Well, in honor of Black History Month, we are heading to Napa to showcase African-American travel experiences and Black-owned businesses there. Napa is home to a growing number of Black Americans who are getting involved with the wine industry. Our travel pro, Martinique Lewis, introduces us to a rising star in the industry that she talked about earlier this morning.
For anybody who doesn't know Mr. James Moss, he has been a winemaker since 2001. And for me, his story is so unique because he taught himself how to make the wine. And now not only can you go and taste the wine, but if you're a winemaker in Napa, he also allows you to come in and start making your wine there. I had a fantastic time with him. I'm not a big wine drinker, but by the time I got out, I promise you, I knew more about wine than I have learned in my whole life.
All right, I'm into it. You can hear all about Martinique's suggestions on where to eat on our website, kpix.com, where to eat and where to buy wine. Well, join us. We're going to honor the contributions and the rich legacy of the Black community right here in the Bay Area. The special is going to air this Thursday at 7:30 p.m. and you can watch our hour-long version on Saturday at 7 o'clock. All right, meantime, that is it for the afternoon edition this Tuesday. Remember, we are streaming 24/7 on the free CBS News app.